Hey guys, today I'm going to be explaining why the Revolutionary War was an important part of our country's history and what happened during it. The Revolutionary War was the battle that won the American colonists freedom from Great Britain. If the Americans would have lost that war, who knows what our country would be like today. Understanding what happened during this battle can better help everyone and anyone understand what people went through to fight for our country's freedom. Even if you're not a total history geek, it is still fascinating to understand why those before us went through for our freedom. So today I'll be explaining why the Revolutionary War was an important part of our country's history. The start of the Revolutionary War, which was also known as the American War, lasted from 1775 to 1783. The French and Indian War brought new territories under the power of Great Britain, leading to new and unpopular taxes. Due to these taxes, the colonists became angry, expediting to the Stamp Act of 1765, the Townshend Acts of 1767, and the Tea Act of 1773. Because all of these protests were going on, the British started unleashing open fire into mobs of colonists, which was now known as the Boston Massacre. After the huge massacre, the people dumped 342 chests of tea into the Boston Harbor, which we now know as the Boston Tea Party. The destruction of the tea led Parliament to pass the Intolerable Acts in Massachusetts. In response, a group of delegates, including George Washington of Virginia, John and Samuel Adams of Massachusetts, Patrick Henry of Virginia, and John Jay of New York, to meet in Philadelphia, 1774, and voice their grievances against the British Crown. Though they didn't get so far to demand independence, they did denounce taxation without representation and the maintenance of the British troops in the colonies. The Continental Congress met once again in May 1775 to vote on further action, but violence had already started. April 18th, 1775, hundreds of British troops marched from Boston to Massachusetts in order to seize an arms cache. The following day, the Battle of Lexington and Concord, making the shots around the world, marking the start of the Revolutionary War. By June 1776, the war was in full swing, with a growing majority of the colonists had come to favor independence from Great Britain. On July 4th, the Continental Congress voted to adopt the Declaration of Independence, drafting a 5-man committee including Franklin and John Adams, but it was mostly written by Jefferson. In hope to crush the rebellion, in the same month, the British government sent out a large fleet along with 34,000 troops to New York. In August, Howie's redcoats routed the Continental Army on Long Island, which forced Washington to evacuate his troops from New York City. After being pushed across the Delaware River, Washington fought back with a surprise attack in Trenton, New Jersey, especially on Christmas night, and had a victory at Princeton to revive the rebels' flagging hopes. In 1777, British strategy involved two main prongs of attack aimed at separating New England from the other colonies. General John Burgoyne's army marched south from Canada toward a planned meeting with Howe's forces on the Hudson River. Burgoyne's men were met with a loss to the Americans in July by taking Fort Ticonderoga. The British defeated the Americans at Brandywine Creek, Pennsylvania on September 11th and entered Philadelphia on September 25th. Washington rebounded to strike Germantown in early October before withdrawing to winter quarters near Valley Forge. Because Burgoyne's army were only exposed, the British suffered the consequences on September 19th, when American force under General Gates defeated them at Freeman's Farm, which in the First Battle of Saratoga. After suffering another loss, Burgoyne surrendered his forces on October 17th. Washington's troops at Valley Forge received training from Parisian military officer Baron Fredericks von Steuben and French aristocrat Maurice de Lafayette. In 1778, Washington's army attacked British forces near Monmouth, New Jersey, resulting in a draw. The war settled into a Solomon phase in the north of 1779 to 1781. With the defection of General Benedict Arnold to the British and the first serious mutinies within the Continental Army, The British occupied Georgia and captured Charleston, South Carolina in May 1780. The British forces under Lord Charles Cornwallis began an offensive, crushing American troops at Camden in August. Nathanael Greene placed Gates as American commander in the South in December, and General Daniel Morgan defeated a British force at Cowpen, South Carolina on January 17, 1781. In 1781, American forces defeated French General Cornwallis and his army at Yorktown, Virginia. Washington, supported by 14,000 soldiers, not as many compared to what the British had, moved against Yorktown, while 36 French warships prevented British reinforcement or evacuation. Cornwallis surrendered on October 19th, and Washington accepted his deputy. Benjamin Lincoln's surrender, the Battle of Yorktown, was not the divest victory, as British forces remained stationed around Charleston and the main army remained in New York. The British removal of the troops from Charleston and Savannah in late 1782 marked the end of the conflict. Now, in November 1783, the British and American negotiators signed preliminary peace terms, and on September 3, 1783, Great Britain formally recognized the United States' independence in the Treaty of Paris. The British also signed separate peace treaties with France and Spain, ending the American Revolution after 8 years. After a long battle, America was finally free from Great Britain, allowing the colonies to be independent and start their own country. This was the Revolutionary War and why it was independent, and I hope you guys enjoyed learning about our country.